Today, we're reacting to an ESPN-style debate covering a major NFL coaching move and what it could mean for multiple franchises moving forward. This is all about leadership changes, organizational direction, and how teams try to reset their identity when things haven't gone according to plan. Before watching the full discussion, we're focusing strictly on the central theme and why this move is getting so much attention around the league. If you enjoy NFL reaction content like this, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Breaking news into CBS Sports HQ. The Tennessee Titans are finalizing a deal to make Robert Saleh their new head coach. Saleh was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco this past season. 20-36 as a head coach of the Jets from 2021 to 2024. He was fired 5 games into his 4th season in New York. Now heading to Nashville to become the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Much more on this story coming up here. We've got reaction. Robert Saleh heading to the Tennessee Titans as their new head coach. Are finalizing a deal to make Robert Saleh their new head coach. Saleh was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco this past season. He was 20-36 as head coach of the Jets from 2021 to 2024. He was fired 5 games into his 4th season in New York, looking to get it right in Nashville. Back here with 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and BMAC.
Yep.
Robert Saleh to the Tennessee Titans. Your initial reaction is what?
Well, I like the fit for both sides. When you look at what didn't go right there for Robert Saleh in New York, there was a lot that was circulating around him that led to a disappointing opportunity there in New York. And heck, they still haven't gotten things right within that organization. But then when you look at the Tennessee Titans, they kind of attacked this situation differently, Hakeem, than what they did previously. Remember when they brought in Brian Callahan to be the head coach, he was more of an offensive-minded coach. And, of course, that didn't work out. So I think they kind of going back to what they did with Mike Vrabel when they hired him, being more of a defensive-oriented coach and trying to set that foundation, get that foundation started on the defensive side. And then, of course, find quality offensive staffers, particularly the OC, to help develop Cam Ward. And when you look at what he's done in terms of just the structure, I think they believe that Robert Saleh can be that piece that they need to create that successful winning-like structure in the organization, something they've been missing for quite some time.
Yeah, that's going to be key, right? Because you got a defensive-mind-headed coach in Robert Saleh trying to develop Cam Ward, right, in year 2. You remember in the preseason, Cam Ward said our offense was mid, and it made headlines, and they could never really get going. Well, it was worse than mid all season. They finished 30th in points per game, less than 17 points per game. When you talk about developing him, what do they need to do with Cam Ward? They really have to go get more pieces because it's not just Cam Ward.
Well, they got to go get an offensive coordinator who's had experience with successful offensive play in the National Football League, who also has experience working with the quarterback. Now, when you look at the vacancies that are still available, there are a slew of opportunities, right, that have to be figured out. So if I'm Robert Saleh, I got to look to see who is available, who is a guy that I trust, not only to get the most out of our offense, but to get the most out of our quarterback. Because in the National Football League, when you don't have quarterback production, it feels like you have to drive 150 yards to score. Forget the 100 yards. It's 150 because it's harder. It's a struggle. And we've seen that throughout the National Football League with teams that are very, very good and teams that are very, very bad. It usually starts or stops with the inability to get the most out of your quarterback. And we've seen some flashes from Cam Ward. I understand it was a very, very difficult year because of the lack of protection and just not having talent around him. But we've seen flashes of him doing some pretty good things. And that's something that you can build upon if you get the right coach in place to coach him.
Do you like the hire of Robert Saleh over Matt Nagy, and how do you grade the hire for the Tennessee Titans?
Early on, the focus is clearly on context rather than just the win-loss record. That's important because not all coaching tenures fail for the same reasons. When a team looks past surface-level results and evaluates structure, environment, and decision-making around the coach, it shows a more mature approach. This feels like a franchise trying to correct its process, not just chase headlines.
I like the hire, and I believe the Tennessee Titans valued Robert Saleh more so than any other coach they interviewed, because if you look at this process for Tennessee, the Arizona Cardinals are right there as well. I think Arizona requested a second interview for Robert Saleh. So it's basically between Arizona and Tennessee for Robert Saleh. So if you look at what he did, he accepted the Tennessee Titan job. And I think that was more so of him trusting and believing in Cam Ward than not knowing what the quarterback situation would be in Arizona with Kyler Murray, what they would do moving forward. So for Tennessee, I like it because I felt like what didn't go right in New York with the Jets for Robert Saleh was more so about what was surrounding him than him as a coach. So this is a second opportunity. Let's see, can he right some of his wrongs for what didn't happen in New York and get things rolling with Tennessee, because clearly, I really feel like when they fired Vrabel, that was a mistake. And now we're seeing that, no question, that was a mistake. So they're trying to correct their wrongs as well.
So you're going to give it like a B+?
Yeah, I'll give it a B+.
Okay.
I'll give it a B.
There we go.
B+.
Jets, going to see if it'll work out for him here.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work out for the Jets. So now you're thinking as a Titans fan, why is it going to work out for us? Well, you got to hope that maybe the retread works for Tennessee with Robert Saleh. They have the 4th overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. They've been mocked to take Ruben Bain Jr., who just played in the national championship for Miami. So Robert Saleh off the board. 4 head coaches hired. Saleh the latest. Still plenty of openings. The Browns, Cardinals, Raiders, Ravens, Steelers, and the Bills, the latest with an opening. And look, when a head coach or an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator is hired, we will have instant reaction right here.
Let's take you to Miami now. Hard Rock Stadium, home of the Dolphins, site of tonight's national championship game. Charles Davis and Danny Cannell standing by. Charles, this is a guy who did not succeed at Boston College, but came back to the NFL and did enough at Green Bay to get this kind of opportunity. What are the Dolphins getting in Hafley?
Well, what's interesting to me, and Danny, you've seen Jeff Hafley come up through the ranks, is I think that if he had stayed at Boston College, things would have continued to move in a positive direction. There's a lot of discussion about when he left. They thought they were making great progress, and they felt like they had to take a step back. With Green Bay, he was really making progress on the defensive side. And as you know, Danny, Micah Parsons got hurt. And now the dominoes start to fall. Injury here, injury there. The numbers aren't the same. But I remember Matt LaFleur was the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. They were 30th in the league in offense. He got the job in Green Bay, and you can't say he hasn't done a fantastic job there.
He's done a phenomenal job. First of all, you throw out the time in Boston College. It might be one of the hardest jobs.
This stretch really emphasizes quarterback development, and that's where the pressure immediately shifts. No matter how strong the defensive background is, everything in today's NFL circles back to whether the quarterback is put in a position to succeed. The idea that talent alone isn't enough, and that support, protection, and scheme matter just as much, is a reality too many teams learn the hard way.
In college athlete, it's just a really hard job. I remember talking to Jeff Hafley when he was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. This thing I think is interesting about this. Oftentimes, if you ever have a dating history, you might date one time, it's a rough breakup. You know, if you like tall blondes, all of a sudden maybe you go to like a 5'7" brunette. This is about as opposite as you can get from what they had in Miami and Mike McDaniel. Like Mike McDaniel, a little bit looser locker room, player-friendly coach. Hafley's going to be all business, and that's what this team needs. They needed somebody to come in a little more buttoned up. By the way, offensive mind, now they have a defensive mind. So I think there's some very clear reasons, the connection to Green Bay with Sullivan, but I think this is exactly what the Dolphins need inside that locker room, is this leadership.
Very quickly, based on what Danny is saying, and we've seen this oftentimes, you often hire opposite of what you had. You need a change in your locker room and direction. The defense was pretty darn good under Anthony Weaver. They did some nice things. But I think what we're saying overall is we need this locker room to know that this guy's in charge and this is how it's going to be. And by the way, get ready for some match quarter coverage that you're going to see next year with the Miami Dolphins.
That's all well and good. Defensive guy. Obviously, the defense is something that can take you to a championship game. We're seeing that in the 4 teams that are top 10 in defense that are remaining in the NFL. But it all comes down to the quarterback, right? And so you've got this Green Bay to South Beach pipeline. Danny, as the quarterback, I'll just throw this out to you. Malik Willis is a free agent. Any chance that you see that as another one from that Green Bay to South Beach pipeline here with these guys?
I was on HQ last week, and we were doing quarterback landing spots for where they could possibly be. And this was when Sullivan was already hired. I said keep an eye on Malik Willis then. Now that you have this tie, I think it makes total sense that you get somebody that you're familiar with, that he knows he can trust, a young playmaker who I still think has a lot of really good football in him. Probably came in and remember his drop in the draft night. Everybody thought he was going to be a first round. Then he drops to the third. And then he was kind of thrown to the wolves in Tennessee, and it didn't work out. But how many times have we seen quarterbacks, it just takes a little bit of time to mature and grow up and learn what it's like in the NFL. I think if they do make this move, I think it makes a lot of sense. They could have an instant playmaker on their hands.
I feel like I dropped in on a game of a movie Fiddler on the Roof. When they were singing matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match.
Yep.
You two have done an excellent job in doing that. And here's the other thing. Defensive coaches, you know what they hate in quarterbacks? Quarterbacks with movement skills. Quarterbacks that move around. They often go get what they don't like to play against. That's why Malik Willis makes a lot of sense. But one thing we do have to keep in mind, Tua Tagovailoa's contract. That is a massive cap hit. We saw Denver absorb the major cap hit for Russell Wilson and move forward. Is Miami willing to do the exact same thing with Tua? Absorb this major hit and try and get your franchise back on its even footing.
And not a potential out.
Overall, this coaching move represents a calculated reset rather than a gamble. It's about stabilizing the franchise, redefining expectations, and building a foundation that can actually support long-term success. Whether it works or not will depend on the surrounding staff and how quickly everyone buys into the vision. That's what makes debates like this so compelling. The real answers won't come today, but over the next few seasons. If you enjoyed this reaction and want more NFL content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.